SCP-212.
Item number.
Object Class Safe. Special Containment Procedures. Use of SCP-212 must be cleared by the current containment site's Chief Medical Officer. Any subjects undergoing operation by SCP-212 must submit to full physical and psychological testing, both before and after exposure. Resistance to testing will result in termination of subject.
Termination.
All personnel are to
This
keep
thing
at
is
least
safe.
1.5 meters or 5 feet from SCP-212 when not in operation. Armed personnel are authorized to use whatever force deemed necessary to prevent unauthorized exposure. Should any personnel accidentally become exposed to SCP-212, full
They'll be
quarantine,
terminated on the
testing,
spot.
and judicial review will be initiated as soon as the subject is released by SCP-212. Description: SCP-212 is a large medical device with 3 large robotic arms. The arms have an extremely diverse array of attachments, but no storage area or power source has yet been found. Attachments slide into and out of the arms as needed, with over 500 different attachments documented. SCP-212 is made of plastic, steel, and other common materials. In-depth analysis is pending, as any attempt by mechanical means causes violent action from SCP-212, and attempts by any biological means normally results with subjects' improvement. When exposed to living tissue, the arms of SCP-212 will rapidly move to grab and restrain it. SCP-212 will then begin to improve said tissue. This process is extremely fast, but SCP-212 does not inject any anesthetic or replace any blood lost. The process has been described as excruciatingly painful and can result in the death of the subject at a rate of 47%. Wounds made by SCP-212 are closed with standard surgical.
So you get basically almost a 50% chance of dying. Like, I mean, I think it's okay to round up. Is it 47? But come on. It's like, oh, you have a 53% chance of living. So, like, what? And this thing doesn't use anesthesia, doesn't replace blood. It does it quickly. And it, like they said, it improves you. I think I have seen this before. It sounds familiar, but I'm not 100% sure. The improver. Like, I wonder what dictates improvement. Like, this thing just say, well, cut off your arms and replace them with robotic arms. Improvement. But you can't actually use them or some shit. Like, it has to be some type of sinister means, like, here, because the one thing, it just grabs you and then just holds you down and then improves you.
Sutures and a chemical sealant
that
is not yet fully understood. Improvements that have been observed include lining of joints with graphite, replacement of biological organs with artificial ones, addition of metal plates to bones, addition of new or duplicate organs, and replacement of teeth with small serrated steel bands, among many others. SCP-212 has been shown to be able to totally reconfigure an organism. The improvement.
Damn. I wonder if it can, what graphite. It said joints with graphite, right? A cartilage. I imagine that you wouldn't be able to bend the joint anymore. So it's not like it doesn't like, oh, I can bend a joint and you can like now like your joints can now take much more like resistance than it could before. Like, I don't see that happening here. And it's replacing organic organs, replacing organs with synthetic ones. Like, I would say if this stuff would work, then I guess that'd be fine. Like, but the thing is, it's replacing stuff that might not need to be replaced. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. It just say, you don't need this. Like, put this in there because it's better. This person needs 2 hearts, but put another heart, put a synthetic heart in. Well, take the real heart out and put 2 synthetic ones in there. Put like if this thing could like give me adamantium bones and I wouldn't suffer from like any type of metal poisoning, I'd be down for that. Even though I would be a lot heavier, I guess. If I add like another 100 and some pounds to my weight, but I would have, but also add like I don't know some to the joints because you can cut in between your. You could have indestructible metal bones, but it could cut in between your joints and cut your arm or spine and stuff. So add something to that.
Movements appear to be random and can sometimes be detrimental or fatal, as illustrated by one subject's complete loss of bone marrow and its replacement by a gel that is still under study. Subjects wishing to undergo exposure from SCP-212 are to be advised
we don't even know what that shit
the
is.
process is extremely invasive and that no predictions on improvements can be made. SCP-212 upgrade log. Record of exposure to SCP-212.
Like a sex toy.
Any and all exposure to SCP-212 is to be recorded and logged. Unreported exposure to SCP-212 will be met with termination. All subjects willingly exposed to SCP-212 must have O5 command approvals, as well as that of site medical staff. Subject: Agent, 28 years old, 64 kilograms, 183 centimeters tall, African American descent. Description of upgrades: lower jawbone replaced by super dense ceramic jaw, teeth replaced with blades made of the same material, spine removed and replaced with synthetic polymer, replacement spine grafted to base of skull, ribcage and pelvis coated with thin layer of ceramic, lungs, eyes, and liver removed and replaced after cleaning. Subject status: active duty. Notes: SCP-212 will appear to clean some organs and tissues. It will run several attachments over the tissue, each of which will spray, scan, cut, or otherwise interact with the tissue before replacing it. When tested, these cleaned tissues appear totally free of genetic defects and appear younger than the surrounding tissues. Subject: Dr. 42 years old, 62 kilograms, 170 centimeters, Caucasian, British descent. Description of upgrades: teeth replaced with super dense ceramic, feet amputated at the ankle, replaced by a thin plastic latticework with several pads on the bottom. These pads are capable of sticking to any solid surface and can carry up to 225 kilograms. Bone marrow removed and replaced with a blue gel. Heart, eyes, liver, and kidneys removed and cleaned. Several metal devices inserted into the brain for unknown purpose. Subject status: subject died during the removal of bone marrow. Foot pads removed and are currently under study. Subject: Agent AA, personal data expunged.
Trying to make Spider-Man some shit?
Suffered severe injuries resulting in traumatic amputation of all 4 limbs and removal of spleen, left kidney, right lung, and left eye. Cranial trauma caused by shard of circuitry piercing skull and entering left frontal lobe of brain. Description of upgrades: contrary to expectations, SCP-212 did not remove the shard of metal from subject's brain, instead spending approximately 7 minutes analyzing the circuitry with a variety of lenses, probes, and sensors before apparently determining that the foreign body could be left in place. SCP-212 then proceeded to integrate said circuitry into subject's frontal lobe more fully, utilizing tracery made of room temperature superconductors. SCP-212 ended by administering an unknown chemical that immediately placed the subject in a coma, then shut itself down.
What is with these?
No attempts were made to replace severed limbs or repair damage to bodily organs, aside from normal cleaning. Subject status: as of subject remains in a chemically induced coma in stable condition. Foreign circuitry in brain appears to be spreading at a geometric rate. Estimate complete replacement of biological brain tissue and data expunged. Subject, Agent, 34 years old,
Data
112
expunged.
kilograms, 176 centimeters, Caucasian, German descent. Description of upgrades: removal of stomach, intestines large and small, liver, and kidneys. Organs replaced with 2 sacks of synthetic tissues attached to the esophagus. Esophagus lined with the same tissue. Sacs produce an acid capable of breaking down steel and transfer all nutrition directly to the bloodstream. This process produces no waste, and any indigestible matter is expelled up the esophagus and out the mouth.
Oh.
Eyes replaced with optic sensor pads capable of seeing invisible, infrared, and ultraviolet light spectrum. Hands removed at the wrist, and each replaced with 8 metallic tentacles, each measuring 3.8 centimeters long. Subject status:
If it looks like that,
to allow adjustment to new internal structures. Subject, D-Class, serial number undisclosed, 23 years old, 62 kilograms, 178 centimeters, Caucasian, American descent. Previously exposed to SCP-217 and decontaminated once the virus had run its course. Full mechanical conversion achieved. Description of upgrades: data expunged. Subject status: subject escaped containment, overpowering 2 armed personnel and effortlessly bypassing several security measures. Subject recaptured after 2 hours, having caused several casualties and injuries, as well as deactivating data expunged. Once recaptured, subject requested SCP classification, presumably in an attempt to avoid termination. Request was denied, and subject was dismantled. Components were incinerated following examination and documentation. Subject, Agent, 25 years old, 93 kilograms, 188 centimeters, African American descent. Description of upgrades: skin replaced with nanomaterial mesh of thick tubes coated in microscopic barbs. Tips of fingers and toes replaced with carbon claws, about 8 centimeters long. Limb bones restructured for quadrupedal stance. Heart and lungs replaced by single organ, with a second similar organ as backup. Digestive system cleaned and shortened significantly. Left eye replaced with ultrasound sensor. Subject status: stable, but behaving erratically. Contained pending psychological analysis. Subject, Dr. 26 years old, 142 kilograms, 200 centimeters, multiracial descent. Subject was rendered fully blind due to accidental exposure to SCP. Description of upgrades: removal of both eyes. Orbits widened to meet and form a single oval cavity. Cavity is lined with metallic structures resembling large cilia. Amputation of both hands. Stumps fused together, and several small limbs resembling crab pincers grafted to the forearms, in no apparent pattern. Teeth removed for cleaning. Teeth with fillings discarded. Remainder replaced. Subject status: deceased. Subject had begun undergoing medical imaging when he began to suffer extreme pain, describing the sensation as, "It tastes all wrong." The cilia-like structures then reshaped into sharp points and extended rapidly in length, many piercing the subject's brain. The gripper limbs continued independent movement for several hours, until subject was incinerated. Subject, D5354, 22 years old, multiracial descent. Subject was scheduled for disciplinary termination and had consumed a last meal consisting of seafood. Subject was already deceased when exposed to SCP-212. Description of upgrades: after spending 4 minutes analyzing and probing subject, SCP-212 dissected subject, carefully removing the stomach and intestinal tract. Stomach was then opened, and a bioluminescent lobster-like organism was constructed from its contents. Subject status: after removing and altering subject's stomach contents as described above, rest of subject's remains were discarded. Subject,
so it only did
mummy
something
of
with the
Intef
lobster.
II, pharaoh of the
These
11th
are lobsters,
dynasty of
huh?
Egypt, circa 2063 BCE. The mummy had been collected during a research expedition by the Foundation's predecessor entity, In the early 19th century. Description of upgrades. SCP-212 spent 25 minutes analyzing subject, then ceased activity without having altered subject. Following this,
It was like,
Dr.
well,
Morrison
it's
directed
too
that
far
the 4
gone.
canopic jars that were collected from Intef II's tomb also be placed in the containment chamber. SCP-212 then reactivated and used a scalpel and a heating tool to make minor alterations to 4 amulets in the mummy's wrappings before again ceasing activity. Subject status apparently unchanged, except that the aggregate mass of the subject appears to have decreased slightly. Subject D5442, 27 years old, Japanese
I guess it's
American
like
descent.
it's a limit to what I can do.
Description of upgrades. SCP-212 removes the subject's thumbs and nose. It scans for 3 minutes before replacing the nose with a silicone version and implanting a thin plastic tube within the nasal cavity, coated in an unknown blue mucus. Subject status.
What is with this
Subject struggled to breathe
chemicals and mucus,
described a pleasant
gels
smell.
and shit?
The subject expired 1 hour later from asphyxiation.
Oh, sheesh.
Subject, a white laboratory rat.
Improvements,
Rattus
they say.
Description of upgrades. The tail was removed, and SCP-212 began to alter the skeletal structure to resemble that of a bipedal organism. All organs were then removed, except the lungs and heart. The additional space was filled with a white paste, which hardened. Subject status. Remains were incinerated after analysis. Subject. The corpse of MTF New 7 Officer Harold Goldman, Caucasian American descent, mauled by an instance of SCP, which had left a large opening in the chest and abdomen. Several organs were devoured by the SCP instance. Description of upgrades. SCP-212 scanned the subject for 10 minutes
SCP that
before
was.
sewing the remaining pieces of intestines back together and repairing sections with a patch of synthetic tissues. SCP-212 then ceases activity after probing the areas where organs should be. Subject status: incinerated. Lesson complete. If you missed the previous orientation, go watch SCP-211, Paper-Covered Building, right now. Or for the complete course.
Paper-covered building right now. Like his voice. That is. I feel like this machine, basically. I feel like if you. It kind of reminds me of it's that movie. I was thinking about doing a reaction to it whenever I get back to doing reactions to movies. Because I want to do it, it takes so goddamn long to edit those things. Plus, I was not feeling well. I thought for a minute, I was like, oh shit, COVID finally got me. Said I hadn't gotten it all this time before COVID finally got me. But then I took a COVID test, and I didn't have COVID. And then eventually it just went away. I think it was probably just allergies because there was a lot of pollen, and I'm allergic to pollen there. But it reminds me of and I'm forgetting the name of the movie. Who's in it? What's that woman's name? She was in Halloween. Jamie Lee Curtis. What was the name of the movie? It was called Virus. Yeah, and it was like an alien, like consciousness or something. Like it was like I think it was traveling on radio waves or something. And they somehow got into this Russian like ship. I think it was a warship. If I'm not mistaken. It might have been an observation ship. I can't remember. But they got into there, and they had all types of, like, weapons and nuclear weapons and stuff like that in there. And they were studying it, and it basically would take humans and kill them, and then chop them up and replace their body parts with other body parts, with other machinery and stuff like that, and then create new machines from other machinery, and then it start killing people. and replacing them with other like machine. I remember it took like a dude's whole side of his head and replaced it with like machinery and gave him like I think his face got fucked up somehow in the fight and gave him like a robotic eye. All this whole part was like Cyborg from DC, where like half his head is like machine. It was like that. And of course, they're not, you know, uh, I don't remember. I don't think they were like the ones they had killed. I don't think they were themselves anymore. They were like machine consciousness. Because I remember the black guy in there. I think he was kind of like they got to kind of have a nerdy guy in there to make sense of all this. And they remember they went to their workshop and they had the one guy who had died and they had taken off. They were looking for him. They had taken like his head, the top part of his head off, and they had replaced like parts of his brain with different circuitry and stuff like that. He's basically turning it like into a computer or the inside like of a computer, like they had, motherboard and all type of shit in it, and it also making it like a hive type mind where they can all talk to one another. And what was I remember it was not Kiefer Sutherland. What's his father's name? Is it Donald Sutherland? Sutherland, where he willingly like gave himself to them, and he was still able to consciously like know who he was, and they turned him like into a machine, like part machine. But it was weird. It was like maybe because he wasn't dead when they started working on him. But yeah, this reminds me that like it makes me feel like if you just like have the SCP-212 in there, you just push somebody in the room and close the door, you just hear like screams and like hacking and swinging like laser noises and shit. And then go back in there and this motherfucker and cut their arms off. Like, why did you take it seems to have no rhyme or reason for the things it does. The cleaning, okay, it cleaned this person's heart, lungs, and kidneys, and then they clean this person's heart, lungs, and stomach, and clean this person's heart, lungs, eyes, and intestines. And like, you would think it was like, okay, it cleans all the organs in your eyes, and it says like the eye. It says that the parts that it cleans do appear newer than the tissue around it. So I could see it like doing something because it seems like it's a machine, but something is telling it to do this. Like, is it conscious machine or is it sentient? I should say machine, and it's like, it's analyzing and looking, and then just deciding to cut off the person's arms and legs. But in that, and the one that it did that didn't even replace them. It replaced a bunch of shit in his head, and then it said and then put the person in a coma. And then it said that the circuitry was like it's spreading in their head. And I was like, okay, but you cut this person's arms and legs. It's like you won't need that shit. We're gonna put you in a coma, and you gonna turn into like it's a big brain like computer. Like I don't know what that was supposed to turn into. Then they said they incinerated. I don't know. They seem to incinerate everything, so I'm assuming they incinerate because almost everything ended with an incineration. So then it seems to replace a lot of organs. And like that rat replaced it's almost all the rat's organs. And then filled the space with like a white fluid that solidified in the body, which is weird. It just like solid now in your like that cavity is just solid. And what was the cutting off the guy's fingertips, replacing them with metal claws, and some of the people seem to be fine. They're on active duty. Like the guy who they replaced his jaw with a hardened ceramic jaw, replaced his spine. Uh, and then one guy's replaced his eye and put what is that, a sonic? Uh, um, damn, I don't forget what it said. But basically, he can hear with that eye, I guess now. Or no, it wasn't even an eye. It's like with, I guess, a receiver or something. It's just no rhyme or reason. It just does whatever. And it's like, okay, that's it. It'd be one thing. It was like, okay, they put this person in there. This person has a history of alcohol abuse. So they have like cirrhosis of the liver, or maybe they have stage 1 throat cancer, whatever type of cancer, or something like that. And they put them in there, and it replaces like their throat with uh like, I don't know, ceramic throat or some shit or something, or replace or clean their liver or something, or replace their liver with a synthetic one. Or they got like they lost an eye, like that one guy, he lost both eyes. Then it didn't replace the eyes. I guess that's too. I guess replacing an eyeball is too technical because it can't go that far. Science has only come so far. So it replaced it. Well, damn, I don't forget what it said. It replaced it with, but it didn't put eye. First, I thought it said it made a slit. I thought it was like, oh, it put like a cyclops eye or something. So, but now he has no depth perception. But at least he can see. And then it said cut off both his hands and replaced them with uh, crab pincers. Like, there was nothing wrong with his hand as far as we know. I would like to see, because it just does whatever. I want to know like why it does these things specifically, because it's not doing things. It doesn't seem to be, because when it scanned the dead people, like it didn't even do anything to the D class that was terminated. It cut out the seafood, I think it said lobster, out of his body, and then worked on that and then just discarded the rest. And then the mummy didn't even do anything to the mummy. This it seemed lighter or something, but it said pretty much unchanged. So, and the first didn't do anything until they brought the jars in that had the mummy's organs in. So I guess it can only do so much. Like this body's like thousands of years old and it's been mummified, so none of his organs in his body. With all his organs been taken out, like his heart and lungs, all this shit like that, and put in jars. His brain. So it like the thing is like I ain't got shit to work with here, but like an empty, like shriveled up corpse. Like it's nothing here. And then it just seems so weird. Like I would like to see someone suffering from like acute radiation poisoning. Like what would it do? Like different scenarios. Like because it seemed like they just put, as far as what they explain, they seem to just put healthy people. Well, besides the guy who had actual injuries, like I said, one guy got attacked by another SCP, and like I said, he lost both his eyes. And dead people, but if you have living people, like I like to see them. Oh, we put uh, a person suffering from acute radiation poisoning in there. What would it do? This person already has lost like an arm or something. What would it do? Would it replace it with a robotic arm? Like, well, it didn't seem to replace any any whole limbs. It replaced feet. Like cut that guy's feet off at the ankles and replaced them with feet that had like adhesive bottoms. um, I think he's trying, like I said, trying to turn him to Spider-Man or some shit. Like I was like curious that like if you put people in that were already physical issues, like like I said, like other different than just like the one they had, like what will happen? What will it do for someone suffering from acute radiation poisoning? What will it do to someone who's already missing all their limbs or a limb or something like that? What will it do if, well, I wonder if someone is already missing, like, let's say someone's entire or almost the entire digestive system's destroyed. Because there was a kid I remember, I think, I don't know how it happened. I don't know if he was trying to kill himself or it was an accident, but I think he swallowed bleach and pretty much destroyed his stomach, his small intestine, and some of his large intestine. And what they did was they connected the parts that weren't, like the stomach was like completely basically destroyed. They cut it off, like I think like up here somewhere, and removed all that and connected his large intestine to his esophagus. So now when he eats, it pretty much just goes straight through his body, into his large intestine. If I remember correctly, I might be mistaken. It might be some of his stomach. Well, I think that's one I said all his stomach was like, fuck, that was destroyed. Yeah, because I remember him saying that he had to pretty much, when he eats, after like 30 minutes, he has to use the bathroom. But I'm like, if you, like, how do you get any nutrients from that? They had to have done something else. Because, like, if it goes straight through your esophagus into your large intestines and the food wasn't broken down at all in your stomach because you don't have one, like, how the fuck do you get any nutrients from that? If any of that, I'm like, is everything a liquid diet now? That you can't eat, or that's the only way you can gain nutrients. But I would like to see that, like, if someone's suffering, like I said, you had acute radiation poisoning, your bone, like the radiation can be stored in your bones. What it did with that guy, with one of those guys, where it drained all his bone marrow and replaced it with blue gel, even though that person died. uh, like, would that possibly save a person suffering from acute radiation poisoning? Cleaning all they organs, um, maybe. I mean, I'll be curious to see whoever created, like, if they just did different scenarios with that. And the SCP Foundation, I'm sure would they would love to do that. They just have different, like, oh, well, this person is, uh, I don't know, like mentally retarded or something, and then they put them like SCP Foundation. This is SCP Foundation we're talking about. They put perfectly healthy people in there. All right, so they did not above that, and then see what happens. Would they try to, was thing like mess with that person's brain and try to increase their intelligence, or what if, like, they put me in with my horrible stigmatism? Like, will it give me better eyes or clean my eyes? But this thing seems to every time have to cut off something. So, like, it can't just, hey, just clean the organ. Like, no, I gotta cut some off, drain something, and then inject them with some type of mysterious chemical or gel or white material that we don't know. We don't know what that is yet, and a person fucking dies. So, like, just clean the organs, to clean the eyes or whatever. Maybe they get rid of, like, cataracts. But anyway, hope y'all enjoyed my reaction. If you did, make sure to hit that thumbs up button down below. Make sure to subscribe if you're new here. Hit that bell, or you'll be notified when I upload the videos. Comment down below. Share this video. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.